to now we're getting to the tips for this week. I can't think today. The rain. If you're in Pittsburgh, it's raining. It's slowing down my gardening projects, but it's Pittsburgh. What can I do? All right. For this writing session today, we're going to focus on writing the first draft. Now, I've said it time and time and time again. The first step to writing is to write. The second step is to rewrite. Okay. Once you write your first manuscript, you're not done. That's just getting the ideas out. That's getting out of your system, right? The second step is to rewrite. That means go back over it and do the necessary edits. That includes grammar edits, and it definitely includes content edits. Okay. Now, there's people from rappers to singers to actors, astound actors, renowned actors who've done things in one take, right? But I'm going to tell you why, because they practice it. Okay. They just didn't step up on the scene, on the stage, in the booth, in the musical booth, the production booth, and just started flowing. Okay. They rehearsed their lines. They rehearsed their participation. They read the director's directions, and they rehearsed it. So when it came time to deliver it, it was perfect. Round of applause. Perfect, because they rehearsed it. So the first time they did it, the second time they rehearsed it. And that goes the same thing for writing. Your first attempt is not done. I'm telling you, it's not done. If you think it's done, you failed. You completely failed, because you're going to need more depth in your scenes. You're going to need more depth. Your characters will need more depth. And it just is not an option. John Grisham, one of the best writers right now, and I'm a huge fan of his work, he writes his manuscripts and then gives them to his wife to read. And she puts her notes in it. And I guarantee you he goes back and he edits his manuscripts. He writes from January to June. Okay, if you don't believe me, look it up. From January to June. And what he does is he works on his writing. And then from that time frame, he does all his edits. I'm sure that he writes his chapters and then gives it to his wife. So even as he's going through his project, his book is being edited. Please. All right. So your first draft. The scenes you built around conflict will eventually be stitched into a complete story. Okay. So you think about a stitching, think about a piece of fabric, a quilt. You have a quilt, the conflict, you have your centerpiece, and now you're building things around that conflict. Make sure as the story progresses that each scene heightens the story's tension, and that the tension remains unbroken until the climax resolves, whether or not your protagonist meets their desires. So your story has to progress with each scene. It heightens the tension of the story. Again, you have to start at the rising action because you're about to hit this tension. And then as the tension is unbroken until the climate is resolved. The climate, of course, has to be resolved. If you think about even in life, you don't want to leave things unresolved with anybody. It's always said, let it go. Move on. And of course, numerous people talked about forgiveness. Forgiveness does not mean access or re-access. It just means that there's been a resolution. Okay. A conversation has been had, rather accountability has been taken, but you, the person who needs to do the forgiving, has said what you needed to say, done what you needed to do. And if the other person or other party wants to receive what is said, then accountability is taken. If they don't want to receive it and there's no accountability, at least you did what you're supposed to do to resolve the issue, right? So every story, every situation needs a resolution, okay? And it means whether or not your protagonist meets the desire. I just said it. Rather, in forgiveness, rather the other party takes the accountability. So you're the protagonist. You need, this is the desire for the other party to take accountability, right? If they do, great, because that's the desire. If they don't, it's not your issue. Okay. Tip number 4, step away, breathe, and revive. This is the second step. And I said that about less than 5 minutes ago. All right. Rather, Stephen King finished a novel. He puts it in a drawer and does not think about it for 6 weeks. This is Stephen King. He's another notorious famous writer. His books are movies. Okay. He writes his books, his manuscripts, and then tuck it away for a month and a half. So if he finished it in January, he's not looking at it till maybe mid-February, early March. Okay. Think about that, because you can kind of clear your head, right? You can clear your head from your characters. You can clear your head from the story. You can clear your head from the book itself. Maybe work on something else, another project, and then we can go back to it. Now you have a more refreshed mind. With short stories, you probably don't need to take as a long break, right? But the idea itself is true. When you finish your first draft, set it aside for a while. Let yourself come back to the story with fresh eyes so that you can confidently revise. Okay. There's a lot of people that want to tell their story, their truths, whatever. And I don't say that to make a light of it. But again, your first draft is it's not your only draft. And sometimes you have to walk away from it and look at it through revised eyes. When I wrote my memoir, The Resurrection of Phoenix Black, right? Now, it took me almost 7 years to write it, because I started writing something, and I was putting some of my personal story in it, which most writers do, my personal life. But then as I was more motivated to tell my story, I hate to sound cliche, but my story, it was very challenging because I didn't want to demonize certain people that were in my life. So what I had to do was write it, take a step back, and even do a self-reflection, a self-evaluation on why was I in the situation? How did I get to the situation? What role did I play to be a part of this time span, right? That was something that I honestly had to take into consideration. And then once I was able to do that, there was a healing. And then there was also now some rewriting. Okay. In revision, you want to make sure that each word has an essential place in the story. Words are very important. Toni Morrison, my girl, she said them. She was younger. She and her sister saw a word. It was the notorious F word. It was written, I think it was, or on the ground chalk. And they saw the word, did not understand until her mother seen it, and she gasped, and she got her and her sister away. It was just very, very, very scary. And she knew at that moment how powerful words were. Okay. So your word has an essential place in this story because, once again, it's a short story. That each scene, you want to make sure that each scene ramps up tension and that each character is clearly defined. Once again, character development is extremely important, especially with a short story. The culmination of these elements allows a story to explore complex themes and ideas, giving the reader something to think about after the story's ended. I love a story, whether it's a short story or a novel. When I read it, I'm like, oh my gosh. And then having the conversation with someone that read the book, because you're getting their insight, you're giving your insight, they're receiving your insight, you're receiving their insight. It is really something to really contemplate on. So please, please, please be mindful of how important revision is. All right, let me see. What else can we focus on today? Maybe leave it for next week. Nope, we're going to leave this for next week. Yeah, we're going to leave it for next week. Okay. Now, as mentioned, I wrote a short story called Another Slice of Pie. Right? And it was about a young man named Andrew Gallagher. He sees this beautiful girl named Lydia Rose, and there's just something about her that is extremely familiar. He's almost hypnotized by this young girl. She is singing. She's a singer. She's a jazz singer. She's a She's singing in a nice lounge, like a bar and grill type lounge area. But there's something about her singing the words. She's like, I know this girl from somewhere, but she's so young. So where have I met her from? And so then he goes home. Now we learned that Andrew comes from a very a famous family, respectfully, one of the prominent African American families in the country. And he is a writer instead of being in the family business. He's a writer, and he's kind of a womanizer. He has a little cutie patootie that is a model, and she just thinks she's an end all to be all. And he has a maid slash auntie figure, mother figure in his life that he has had become a great friendship with. So we're going to figure out how and who this girl is. We need to know, right? Who's this girl? Let me see. Where do we leave off at? Okay. It is well past midnight, and Andrew's in his study trying to write. He starts to think about the spellbinding beauty that he saw earlier, Lydia Rose. He searches the internet looking on the search engine for any information about her, but there is nothing. She has such a familiar face, as if he has seen her before, and the music is familiar as well. Andrew can't understand the sudden intrigue. Maybe she's a muse, something that inspired him. At some time, he gives up on his search and continues to write. Andrew and Lana sit in Miss Ida's house of soul. Let me start over. Andrew and Lana sits in Miss Ida's house of soul. As far as Lana's concerned, the lounge is beneath her. She's a top runway model. We don't dine in bars. She cannot understand why someone like Andrew Gallagher would want to dine in a smoky bar. I like the music. I like the food. I like the place, Lana, Andrew would tell her. The audience waits for Miss Lana to take the stage to introduce the performer of the evening. Ladies and gentlemen, Miss Lydia Rose, Miss Ida says. Applause goes forth from the audience, and Lydia Rose takes the stage. She looks beautiful in a coral-colored A-line baby doll dress that comes to her knees. Like Billie Holiday, she has a gardenia in her hair. Lydia looks like an exotic beauty. Again, where does he know her from? There's something about her dark eyes and her smile. Andrew, Lana yells. He looks at her. She looks irritated. I asked you a question. What? He asked. Never mind, she replies, irritated. Lana, what? I'm sorry. I'm ready to leave, Lana says, gathering her purse and shawl. Quickly, Lana stands up and begins to leave. Leave, Lana. We just got here, he says, standing, preparing to follow her. This song is an oldie but goodie, Lydia says. The music begins to play to a recognizable song, catching Andrew's attention. Then Lydia begins to sing, and then suddenly, this strange familiarity becomes clear. Robin, he mouths the name. This woman on stage cannot be Robin. She is too young. All right, now we have another character. So, who's Robin? But the resemblance is uncanny because she looks just like Robin. Quickly, Andrew looks back, wanting to go after Lana, but he cannot move. The image of Robin is holding him in place. The music, the familiarity of the songs. Those songs that Lydia Rose sings is Robin's lyrics. The oldie but goodie that Lana is singing was Robin's favorite song. Andrew knows this, by the way. Wait a minute, what did I write? Andrew knows this, by the way, Lydia is singing this song. I can't talk today. I can't read today. All right. Excuse me, said the waiter. If you could please sit down. They can't see in the back. Andrew quickly sits down and continues to stare at the image of an old and familiar friend. Huh. Andrew waits to the end of Lydia's performance. He needs to talk to her. He approaches the bartender. Can I speak with Lydia Rose? He asks. The bartender shakes his head. Sorry. She leaves immediately after her session. Andrew sighs. Will she be in tomorrow? Andrew asks. The bartender nods his head. He thanks the bartender for the little information and races home. The anxiety of the possibility of who Lydia is or who she might be weighs heavily on Andrew's heart. He storms into the house, startling Mona. Mr. Gallagher, she says, startled by the frantic demeanor. Brandy, he claims, and he races into his study. He opens the closet and pulls out a photo box. Mona enters with the brandy. Andrew opens the box and then dumps them on the floor. He sits on the floor and searches frantically through them. Mr. Gallagher, Mona said, what's the matter? Andrew doesn't reply. He grabs a photo of a beautiful black woman. She has dark eyes and a bright smile, and roses in her hair, and the uncanny resemblance because she looks just like Lydia. Ah! He cries out, Robin! Mona stands nervously, not knowing what to do. Andrew was breathing hard. Her name, Lydia Rose, that's his name. Robin, he groans. Mr. Gallagher, Mona says in a soft tone. She walks to him and sits down beside him on the floor. What's the matter? Andrew looks at Mona. She sees pain in his eyes. The singer, he said softly. Tears fall from his eyes. Mona nods, but doesn't knowing what he's referring to. She's my baby, Andrew says. Mona's eyes question asking, trying to understand who and what he is talking about. Andrew shows her picture. That is in his hand. Mona looks at the photo, then she looks at him. She shrugs her shoulders with bewilderment. We were married, but she left me, Andrew said in a soft tone. I wanted her to stay, but she wouldn't. She must have been pregnant. I didn't know it, and tonight, that singer, she's my child. Mona is in shock by what Andrew is telling her. Then she begins to remember. A few years before she began working for him, everyone in the city was shocked by Andrew's impromptu marriage to a local girl that he happened to have gone to college with. However, with their low-key lifestyle and very limited social sightings, Andrew Gallagher's marriage became no big deal. Most people predicted in a few years she would be gone, and she was 2 years later. How old is the child? Mona asked. She has to be about 22. I have to talk to Robin. Andrew quickly stands and races to the door. Mr. Gallagher, Mona calls out quickly. Mr. Gallagher, Mona calls out quickly, jumping to grab Andrew. I have to talk to Robin. It's well past midnight, she points to the digital clock on the desk. But do you know where she is? Oh, sneeze, excuse me. Andrew thinks he has no idea where Robin is, and Lydia is gone. He has to wait until the next day, he sighs. Sit down, Mona says, leading him to the sofa. She hands him his brandy and sits down beside him. Are you sure that girl is your daughter? Yes, he answered. He says, quickly drinking the brandy. He hands Mona the glass. She raises the glass, indicating if he wants another. He shakes his head. Mona looks at him with questions in his eyes. She looks like her mother, as if she spit her out. The music she sang said Robin all over it, and her name, Lydia Rose. I always said that if I would have a daughter, her name would be Lydia Rose. Lydia Rose Gallagher. Okay, then. Why won't you tell you about the baby? How did you not know she was pregnant? He takes a deep breath, and then he slowly exhales. I want to be alone. Mona grins. Okay, she says, and then stands up. If you need anything. Andrew nods, then watches Mona leave. He takes another deep breath and thinks about Robin. Robin Booker, his ex-wife. From the start of the marriage was a hoax, a temporary covenant to buy time. However, with the course of his marriage, they fell in love with each other. Andrew wanted to make the marriage real, but Robin didn't want a commitment. And when the time came to move on, she left Andrew heartbroken. He had never been the same emotionally. Although he dated many women, he never remarried. He dated a variety of women for temporary comfort. Andrew wondered why she left him. Was it because of Lydia? He would have done the right thing. He would have taken care of his baby without hesitation, without question. Robin avoided emotional contact and the concept of commitment. But Andrew could look in Robin's eyes and see that she loved him. And a few times that they made love, he could tell that she loved him. But Robin was adamant about her decision. She enjoyed their friendship, but she did not want a relationship. Andrew is certain that Lydia Rose is his child, his daughter. Her look, her style, and the music all spoke of Robin. Still thinking about Lydia Rose, Andrew can see she's a Gallagher. Is Lydia from here? He asked himself. Is she local? If so, why haven't I seen her? And where is Robin? Andrew looked out the window. The moon shines directly in front of the window. He thinks of Lana. Maybe he would go upstairs and see what her problem was. Why did she run out of the club so quickly? He asked himself. Andrew couldn't bring himself to move. His mind is running and his thoughts are occupied. He decides that he doesn't want any candy, but as he turns away from the window, candy's at the door. Lana enters the study wearing a short black lacy nightgown. Andrew looks at her, but he shows no emotion. Lana sits down beside him. Why did you leave? He asked coolly. Why did you stay? Then she looks at the pictures on the floor. What's going on? Andrew looked at her. Andrew shakes his head. Lana shrugs her shoulders, not caring to press the issue. You coming to bed? She asked. In a minute, he answers. Just as he watched her come into the study, Andrew watches her leave. Still doesn't move from the couch. In spite of all that, he is feeling at the moment. He did manage to doze off to sleep for a few hours. He's awakened by Mona. She has breakfast and coffee for him. You okay? I guess, he answers. Are you going to that lounge? Mona asks. Andrew nods his head. I have a few meetings today, but I'll be there. Mona walks to the photos that are still on the floor. She kneels down and picks up the photos and puts them in a box. She looks at the picture of Andrew and Robin sitting together in the photo they were smiling. You two seem happy, Mona comments. Andrew sips his coffee. So, now we have some characters, right? And we have some conflict. So, we have Andrew Gallagher, that's our protagonist. We have side characters. We have is Robin the antagonist? That's something that we need to find out. We have secondary characters, Mona and Lana. See how far they go into the story. All right. We will continue next week. Have a great Saturday.